Hold on one sec. All right. Save that story, Mike. A big welcome to Mike Robinson, and there's our wide shot, and Gabby, the marketing manager of South African Sailing. Thanks for tuning in, guys. If you see this, please subscribe on the channel and like all those things that I have to say. It pains me, but please do it. And then, of course, if you are watching this, please share it. That's always very helpful. So welcome, guys. Welcome to the Ardila Dungeon Studio. Man. How are you guys doing?
Fabulous, eh? Isn't this a lovely place?
It's pretty cool, right?
The whole house, the whole atmosphere, everything is like really. Thanks so much for inviting us.
You're welcome, and thanks for accepting my invitation to stay, because you were going to stay on a boat for your sins. I don't know what you've done. I don't know what you've done that you don't have good accommodation in Hart Bay. Not to say that a boat isn't, of course, but I'm glad you're staying over tonight. So we'll get up to Sinead. I might get you drinking again. I think tonight could be the night. What do you think?
Tonight could be the night.
How long's it been since you had a spot?
About 35 years.
Okay. I think 35 is a good run. Gabs, I think we can.
Wow.
You're in Hart Bay.
My wife will tell you
Okay.
that sober, I'm bad enough.
Okay.
She said more than bad enough.
Okay, got you. All right. Well, then we won't
Push her luck.
push our luck with that one. But anyway, it's a privilege having you here. It's very cool. Good to see you again. Sorry, I forgot about our last encounter. That was an awkward introduction, and it shall never happen again. The comments are slowly rolling in. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you. So today's show is all about South African sailing, and the hashtag is SA Sailing 75th. You guys are doing something. And on that note, Gabby, go. Tell us what's going on. Microphone. Where's the mic? Okay, you got it. Well done.
Put me on the spot. 75 years of sailing, celebrating it, having our anniversary this year. We are having a spectacular event, multiple events across the country, at the Vaal, in Saldanha, in Plett, in everywhere. Cape Town, of course, can't forget about Cape Town.
Yeah.
Sorry, say again.
Midmar.
Massive, massive, massive. And we are looking forward to it. It is happening from the 16th to the 22nd or 21st of December.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So what do people have in store? What's the plan? What's the itinerary?
Well, it starts on the 14th.
14th with the Impossible Machine sailing
once around Table Bay with 75 yachts at least.
Okay.
75 yachts. We've been promised 75 by Royal Cape Yacht Club.
Okay.
And Kerry is the lady in charge there, so we need to actually put her on the spot.
Yes.
And say,
What have you done?
Kerry, 75 boats or bus, 74 doesn't cut it.
Okay.
And that's when it starts, and then there's this huge national championship event on the Vaal Dam. But it's not only national championships. There's cruising, there's round the dam races. There's guys who are going to be sailing from one club bar to the next club bar. It's going to be the youth national championships are there, so there'll be kids from the age of 6 sailing optimists all the way through to grandpas sailing the cruising fleet around the dam. It's going to be absolutely huge.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then Saldanha Bay and Port Owen Yacht Club are getting together to do a cruise down to Kroll Bay in Langebaan. And they're going to be mixing it up with the Sea Cadets. And that's going to be nice, because the Sea Cadets are a brand new development initiative that we're involved in. And that's going to be really cool.
Yeah.
And then my friends at Gordons Bay are going to be doing something with False Bay Yacht Club. They're going to be racing each halfway across Table Bay. And George Lakes Yacht Club is having a regatta. And the guys from Quebeca are going to be doing a cruise. I haven't heard from Buffalo Yacht Club in East London yet, but Peter, I'm watching you.
Peter, come on, Peter.
And,
don't be scared.
In Durban, they're doing a nice cruise. Zululand Yacht Club is doing a nice cruise. Midmar Yacht Club has got 2 national championship regattas happening. It's going to be enormous. We want to have 7,500. We want to have 75 years.
Yeah.
750 boats, 7,500 people.
Yeah.
It's going to be, if we can then get 75,000 people involved on virtual stuff,
Yeah.
it'll be something that'll be really worthwhile doing. So we're very excited about that.
Okay, cool. So this is all in aid of promoting awareness and just basically just refurbing a bit of an establishment that's probably hasn't been refurbed for a while, if I may say. You know, is that kind of what?
It's a whole lot deeper than that.
Okay.
It's a whole lot deeper than that. You've got to. The basic premise from which this whole thing goes, the way the start of this whole thing is that sailing is the most fabulous development tool available in South Africa. I'm just going to say that, put it on the table.
Agreed.
There. It is a way of teaching young people. You must remember, I started sailing when I was 22 or 20. Yeah, I was quite old already.
Yeah.
Teaching young people life lessons that see them into the rest of their lives. They learn courage, and they learn tenacity, and they learn camaraderie, and they learn everything, all without actually ever understanding that they're in a lesson.
Right.
You just do the stuff, and in the act of sailing, you learn all these lessons. And if you have a look at people that have gone through our development programs, they become really, really positive, good adults. And so what we want to do is we want to get sailing lifted to a point where people are interested in it, that more and more people want to get involved in it because it is this fabulous development tool. And in the process of getting young people involved in this, we are actually turning out a lot of really, really good adults because of all the life lessons that they learn in the process.
Yeah, I agree. I think the camaraderie you get from sailing and being on a boat.
Did I remember all of that?
Yes, you got
Well
it right.
done. That was you
Can
nailed
I
that. That was
can I
better
check can I check my notes quick?
That was better than you rehearsed it in the kitchen earlier. Well done. That was amazing. Yeah, it's true. Like being on a boat and, you know, that team building is definitely an amazing experience to have. You know, learning to work together, you know, for the greater good and for the lesser sinking is always a good life skill. So I totally agree. I think it's wonderful.
Learning to find courage that you don't know where it's going to come from.
Yeah.
Learning resourcefulness, because when you're out there, you're on your own. You have to sort it out. You know, I mean, it's just such a fabulous way to learn life skills.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think everyone check out South African Sailing. Make sure you follow them. And yeah, it's hard because, well, it's not hard. It's interesting because I also was an extremely late bloomer in 2010. How old would I be? That would have been, well, like
Old
12,
enough.
12 years. Old enough for sure.
Old enough.
But I had I'll bore you with my story of how I got into sailing. I was in Los Angeles. The band was signed to Capitol Records, Just Ginger. And I have a friend called Wade Eastwood, who's just probably the most prolific second unit coordinator in the world. He's a stuntman from Durban, and he's done all the Tom Cruises, he's done a bunch of James Bond, and I could list these movies that he's done personally, and he does the stunts. And I remember having dinner with him and his wife, and they were going over their honeymoon photos. I was like, oh, that's cool. And he's like, oh yeah, here's the cat that I sailed us in Tahiti. I was like, how did you do that? Who sailed it for you? No, I've got a yacht master license. So I just sailed. I was like, that's very cool. I don't even have a motorbike license. I've only got a car license, you know, barely. And so that triggered. I was like, come on. I mean that. And then obviously being the show-off stuntman that he is, he's obviously got a chopper's license. He's got a fixed wing license. He's got every license that you need. But that's mainly for his job. And I just thought, how cool in life to go through something, challenge yourself, and just have the ability to be able to rock up in a foreign country and produce a ticket that allows you to commandeer another vehicle or another vessel. Do you know what I mean? And that started me. So I came back and I started a little bit in Marina Del Rey, did my day skipper there, and then I came back in 2010 and got stuck into the coastal skipper RYA course. But if I'd sailed 5 times up to that point, that would have been a lot. But obviously, the amount of sailing you need to do to get the ticket is substantial. But it hasn't been a lot more since then, Mike. I will confess. I'm halfway through my offshore now as well. I've done the written, and so a few miles short of being able to apply to do the oral exam, which is what I want to do before I can skip the Impossible Machine to the Cape to Rio. But so that's my story, and I just think it's it's going on to what you were saying. Is like it's a cool life building skill. Like it's nice having the extra little ticket in your pocket and an extra skill to not be, also to have, a lot of people are afraid of the water, rightfully so. I am. It's a healthy respect. But I just think there's so many opportunities to grow as a person, and sailing it really is a fun one, and we have amazing waters out here. So all right. So I wanted to ask you something. I'm going to jump straight into it. Don't be scared. It's nothing nothing worse than you've said around the kitchen table already. So.
I want to know the story about the giraffe and the vibrating scooter.
Yes, go.
No, I don't know it.
Oh,
but the entire sailing population of South Africa is waiting for me to tell that story, and maybe tonight.
Okay.
Maybe tonight.
Well, why did you start with it? I mean, we can't have people.
Because I've still got to make it up.
Oh, okay. Well, you got.
Sorry, you were going to ask me.
The giraffe and the vibrating scooter.
Yes.
That sounds. I can't wait to hear how you got into this, but I'm gonna
ask me the question. I just wanted to get a little bit of breathing space while I prepared myself for this question that you're going to ask me. If it's not
riveting, I'm going to make up the details for you. Okay, I'll fill in the details. So I wanted to ask. So yes. I come back now, 2010. I do my RYA coastal skipper, and then I go, Kip, I've got this license. I'm very happy. I buy the Impossible Machine 3 years ago. Going, that's cool. I've got a ticket. I've got a boat. Only to realize after I've purchased it that I cannot sail her in South African waters with my RYA ticket, which means that I have subsequently redone that ticket through SAS.
South African Sailing.
South African Sailing.
SAS, we must actually say our core business in our name.
Okay, is that a criteria? I apologize. I will never be that sassy ever again. So South African Sailing so I had to do that. So my question to you is, because it's a bit frustrating and it was a little bit annoying. What happened between RYA and South African Sailing way back when, and why? Go. Why the disparity? And
I have no idea, but I can tell you what it is. It is because our local authorities actually understand that the South African Sailing qualification is ideally suited for what we do here. Okay. I'm not going to say that the SA Sailing qualification is better than the RYA qualification or vice versa. The RYA qualification is acknowledged possibly more widely than the South African Sailing qualification, but with the South African Sailing qualification you can get an international endorsement, which allows you to sail anywhere in the world. You can charter a boat anywhere in the world. The issue is not that South African Sailing is better or less better. It's a SAMHSA requirement. It's the SAMHSA that has laid down that rule. And quite honestly, the courses are really much of a muchness.
Yeah.
I have a South African Sailing qualification, obviously. It would have been poor form for me to get an RYA qualification.
It probably wouldn't have been very much.
But there's you more than likely found that it was just as easy to pass the SA Sailing qualification as the RYA qualification.
It was, which is why to do the coastal skipper is no easy feat for to begin with, and then to have to do it again. It's a bit frustrating. You can understand, and I understand. So I just thought you had some insight into the politics as to what led to that moment.
It's always a good thing to phone me first.
No. We break. This is what we're fleshing this stuff out right now, live on air. So if that's your answer, I understand. If you don't have any insight to it, I don't even know. Maybe there isn't even any insight that I'm looking for.
I don't think there is. I don't think there is anything other than that our authorities recognize our qualification.
Right.
I think it's just as simple as that. There's no soap opera drama.
Come on, man. We were supposed to be making stuff up. This is live television. If you can make jokes up, you can.
We'll do that. We'll do that.
Okay, so that was literally the only question that I had because it affected.
Was that hard?
No, it wasn't hard.
Did I do that? Did I do it right?
You were great, Mike.
Is it?
Perfect.
Can I check my notes?
On your handkerchief. Yeah, so that is obviously a thing. So there is an international endorsement you can get once you get these tickets that allow you everywhere. Okay, well that is encouraging to know.
So if you have I have a South African Sailing offshore yacht masters qualification, and if I get that endorsement, I can actually charter a yacht anywhere in the world.
Okay.
With my qualification and with that endorsement.
Okay. Then I think the next obvious question, you have to tell us where it all started. 22 from Carltonville. How the hell does one get into sailing?
Okay. Boskop Dam.
Okay.
Boskop Dam is situated between Carltonville and Potchefstroom. Okay. It couldn't be more arid.
Yeah.
And any good story has got a pretty girl in it.
Yes.
This one has a pretty red-haired girl and a boat that was called a Sprog that had green and white sails. And she put me on this boat. It was almost no wind. And she said, just pull in that rope there. The sail will come in. And this thing here is called the tiller.
Yeah.
And then and I pulled in that rope and held the tiller, and the boat just moved like by magic. Like,
Yeah.
right, that was me.
Was that your moment?
That was me. It was done. And to this day, there's nothing that brings me peace like that moment when you get the sails in and you've got the tiller in your hand, and and it's magic, hey? It's absolute, and it doesn't matter if it's Boskop Dam or the Southern Ocean. It's all just absolute magic.
Right. I see that. Sorry, I was slightly distracted. We've got David Booth here. His comment is, I was an RYA instructor and SAYRA copied the RYA syllabus, but SAS had no tidal instruction. I don't know about no tidal instruction. From what I've understood, is a little bit less than RYA, because of the tidal variation. But so thank you guys. Keep comments going. This is an open platform. We're allowed to ask
David
questions.
is the guy to answer that question because David's been around for a long time.
Okay.
And thanks, Dave, for saving me there. I was starting to show my lack of,
Thanks, David. Shout out. Hold on, we're gonna give a round of applause. Okay, so so that's kind of the same feeling that I get, which has not been often because it's been a construction
You're
site
going to ask
of
me
a
how I
boat.
met my wife.
I'm about to, but I just want to carry on your story. Don't forget to remember me to ask the story about meeting the wife.
The wife, yes.
The wife.
Okay, I'll
My
just quickly tell you,
my
it's the same-
favorite
it's-
wife.
It's the same. Your favorite wife. It's the same as me when I get to finally kill the engines when we're out to sea and we do take sail. So I get that adrenaline.
Yeah,
It's just the
isn't
most
it
beautiful.
just the most amazing thing.
How did you meet your wife? Shoot, go. Are you going to say which one?
My friend Rodney and I started sailing our Sprog together. I bought a Sprog and Rodney was my crew, and we decided that we were going to sail a national championship regatta. And this particular one was held on the Allemanskraal Dam in the Free State. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
And there was a lot of people sailing Sprogs there. There must have been about 70 or 80 Sprogs racing in this regatta. And we were young and drinking.
Yes.
And by about the Tuesday, we asked the question, how are we doing in this regatta? And they said, if you go up to that building over there, in the window they've got the results. So we went to check our results. And the list was quite long. And there we were, stone last.
Okay.
So we went back to our tent and we had a castle lager-driven strategy session.
Yes.
Okay, these are the big.
No, those are vital. Those are vital.
And we decided that we needed to find somebody to follow around this dam.
Okay.
So we went back up to that building and we checked the list, and the first guy's name was Tuffer Hancock. And we decided he was a bit grumpy, so we wouldn't follow him. The third name on the list was Gillian Tennyson. And Rodney said, is that the chick with the bikini? When she leans, she slides. I said, that's the one. That's the one. So we followed her around the dam, and we went from Stonelast to halfway in the fleet.
There we go.
Okay, and that was when I first set eyes on my wife.
Uh-huh.
And it took quite a long time before we got married.
Okay.
And
You couldn't catch her.
But now, no, I've never beaten her in a yacht race. Never, ever,
Still
ever
to
beaten
this
her
day.
in a yacht race.
Well go, Gillian. Well done.
And we've been married for 38 years this year. Sailed across the ocean together 3 times.
That's amazing.
Special wife.
What a joy.
Special wife.
What a joy. That's a great story. That's a good carrot to dangle if you start last in a race. So that's good. That's good motivation.
There you go.
Yeah. So, like, what do you apart from holding these kind of events? which will create awareness and things like that. What other things? What kind of like old stigmas around sailing in general, not just South African sailing? What do you think, should kind of be revisited or rebranded around it, just so we can modernize it and get the youth like really excited about it? Because also with with technology now, everyone's just on Instagram. No one wants to put their phone down and go and sail, which they don't realize is the most therapeutic thing in the world for them. Are there any plans? I'm gonna aim this at young Gabby. What do you? I mean, like what kind of tactics to refresh, to just kind of refresh the even the concept of sailing? Because I'm maybe just speaking only what I think, but I think a lot of people are afraid, especially of our South African waters. We have notorious waters. I mean, are you guys hoping just that these events will just like reignite the passion a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I think.
But in the mic.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Like you said earlier, the fear of water is real. People are really scared of water, and I think from what I've seen at my time with SA Sailing is that access to water and understanding water and the safety around water is vital and super important. The life building skills that people are getting through sailing, building their characters, that goes into sailing as a pathway for a career one day. Definitely breaking those stigmas that sailing's only for a certain type of person.
Say old white men.
I don't want to say it. You can say it.
Say
I
old
don't
white
want to
men.
say it. Yeah, but breaking that stigma that sailing can only be accessible for the older white generation.
Yeah,
and
this is true. Come on, you said it, Mike.
The truth, we've got various development programs that we are running to get the marginalized, to get them to be able to go out and sail and have access to water.
Yeah, I think that is vital. If only people would spread the good cheer of sailing, because it's been as much as it's been a task for me, but I did pick a vessel that needed a lot of love. The joy that you get out of sailing, as we've discussed, it really is.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing. We have this demographic. Okay, this is the demographic which we're working on and successfully working on it, and we've got some really fabulous development programs going, and our demographic is rapidly changing. But sailing is not cool. Okay, now. You don't have that much sailing experience.
No.
Okay. But you're cool.
Well, thank you. I think you're pretty cool too.
Okay. And no, you're cool. I know sailing.
Okay.
So
great.
I'm going to teach you sailing and you're going to teach me cool.
All right.
Okay. Because what we have to do, what Gabs and I have to do, is we have to create something really, really cool that will be attractive to people. I'm going to tell you about, I don't know if you're old enough to know about the first single-handed transatlantic yacht race. A guy from
pull your mic up as close as you can.
A guy from Benoni, Boksburg, some Eastern guy called Bruce Dalling got onto the original four tracker and came second in the single-handed transatlantic yacht race. And Tertius Myburg was the editor of the Sunday Times at that time, and he picked up on this thing and they turned it into a really, really good story. And at the same time, the Daily Mirror in the UK was very keen on yachting, and they had a competition to build little dinghy boats, and it caught on in South Africa, and everybody was building these little dinghies in their lounge or in their kitchen or in their garage or wherever they could. And because of that vibe that Bruce Dalling and Tertius Myburg and the Mirror dinghies, that started the first wave of sailing. It was a really cool thing for people to do at that time. And at this time, we need to reignite that spark. We need to get people back into that. We need them to actually realize the magic of what we're doing. And it's spreading that magic is what we need to do. But we need to make it cool, because it's hard work.
Yeah.
And to get out there sailing in the cold and
it looks glamorous. It's like being a rock star. It looks glamorous.
Yeah. And it's hard work, but really, really worthwhile stuff to do. And we need to make that cool.
Right.
And that's where you come in.
Oh,
you've got to tell us how to do that.
No pressure.
Pressure's on.
Oh, my word. Okay, cool. So Michaela Robinson says SA Sailing Skippers course do include title instruction. I can confirm, as I've just done it along with 6 others. Thank you, Michaela. I did concur that as well. We do have tides in South Africa that maybe just not quite.
That is my daughter and former heir that you've just been speaking. Hello, Mickey May. How's it in America, my darling? She just flew back to the United States. She's at Oak Cliff Sailing Academy in Long Island. She might still be on her way there, and she's doing some very fun, adventurous stuff. Michaela,
cool. Well, she's just commented, so she's watching somewhere. I don't know where you connected from. Hopefully.
Hello, my darling.
Thanks for commenting, guys. Send questions, anything that you guys think of, like any comments whatsoever about what we can do to kind of just reignite the passion of sailing. Because it I'll tell you another kind of put off is it, and I felt it myself. It does kind of feel like a bit of a rich man's sport as well, because that Akram boat is bring on another 1,000. All the other things that we've heard so many times about boating, it's not cheap. But then again, getting a small little up in, getting out there and being part of the crew and going to yacht clubs and just signing up to be crew, is an easy enough thing to do.
The fallacy is that it's inaccessible. It isn't cheap. Okay, but that demographic, the old white guy demographic, are the guys who actually make it accessible to everybody. So for example, the Sea Cadets idea that we have at the moment is a guy called Andre Bester, who's in the Navy in Saldanha Bay. He's got the Sea Cadets really cooking. We've just had a group of 5 who've got their skipper's ticket. A group of 10 who've got their skipper's tickets, and it's a really good thing. But now they need somewhere to sail. So Port Owen Yacht Club is not the youngest demographic in South Africa. Okay.
Yeah.
But these guys need somewhere to sail, and those old guys need crew.
Yeah.
And so suddenly the sailing is going to be made accessible to them because of they don't have to find the money to buy the expensive boat. They don't have to maintain the expensive boat.
Right.
It is accessible. If you go to any of our sailing development programs, the boats are available.
Right.
And so that big cash outlay will wait until you, because of all the life lessons that you learned, become a rich old guy.
Yeah,
you'll be able to buy the boat, and then you'll be able to give chances to the younger generations that are coming up below you. Sailing is expensive, but it's not inaccessible.
Yeah. So I think the takeaway and the message is guys, get out to your local yacht club and go and sign up as crew and be volunteer. People are always looking for crew. I know this, and it's not I think also the whole club system as well. I've always been wary of being part of any kind of club. I guess just because I'm a bit of a solo kind of personality. So having to sign up for things also deters people. So I mean, people should forget about that and just break that.
But there's a magic word.
Yeah.
If you go to a club and you start your introduction with the words "Michael says,"
there we go.
Okay.
There we go.
It'll just open. Go there and say, "Michael says, you can teach me how to sail."
Well,
or
go,
Michael
guys.
says, you'll get me under the water.
Yeah, tonight on this show.
Yeah, just
you say
like
Michael
says
on Art's show. Michael
on
says
Art's show.
It's cool to be here. And Gabby agrees as well. Okay, well, thank you so much. I mean, that's vital. I wish I'd have known that before I had to start going to look for clubs to join as well. I should have just
Michael says, yeah. It really, but what you will find, and I'm being dead serious, is that every club in this country is looking for new members.
Yes.
Every club in this country is dying to have new people come and get involved in the sport. And the colour issue is history. You don't have to feel inferior about going to a yacht club because you're not your nose isn't the same colour. The guy in the corner of the bar's nose will be bright red and bloody. Okay, so you don't want to nose that colour anyway.
Exactly.
And you will find the Michael says thing is just a bit of bullshit. But
no. You said it. Now this is it. The clubs are going to be phoning you up tomorrow saying, "Listen, what is this free membership stuff you've been offering?"
Michael says, "No, it's another way of saying, I've been told that I'll be welcome here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the message that all of the clubs are wanting to give. Visitors are welcome. People who want to learn how to sail are welcome.
Yeah.
It's something that we really aspire to.
Cool. I think that's a message in itself, to be honest, because I've been fortunate that I've been welcome most places in my life, but I've had that little, there's just that little bit of an outsider's hesitation, should I say, and so I think just merely what you said now will help people who have been hesitant to do so.
We as a sailing community are trying to become the people that other people want to mix with.
Yeah.
And we have to. If we don't manage to do that, then our sport is lost.
Right.
So we have to keep on reminding ourselves that we need to take that step of making people want to do what we're doing, want to become what we are.
Yeah. There's a comment. I'm going to read it out. Super Uppy 1295. I don't know if you guys know who that handle is. I've been sailing since 2009 or so, and have done a few coastal races. However, I haven't done anything more than 2 days because I am too nervous of doing a number 2 on the boat. Any tips around this? Come on, Mike. Tell us. Well, how do you not do a number 2?
No, you have to do a number. You have to do a number 2, and it's part of the fun.
Explain where the word poop deck comes from. This could be a nice little segue into poop deck.
Well, you don't have to use the poop deck.
Why not?
Okay,
I mean,
you can use the poop deck. It's fine. There are 3 options. Okay. The poop deck is the most adventurous of the 2, but you don't need toilet paper because what's the word that I'm looking for?
Expelling.
No,
Flushing.
you're flushing.
Yeah.
You just extend yourself down to a point where you don't require any toilet paper. So that would be the first option.
So that's the origin.
Off the stern.
Yeah. Please don't do that on my boat, guys.
The second option I think would be best described as the bucket and chuck it option. Okay, and that's fine because that positioning of the bucket, you can find yourself a place that suits you. And then the third option, of course, is the heads. Any boat that's doing a coastal trip will have a head.
Have a working heads, right?
Yeah, and or at least a porta potty. They won't be allowed to go to sea without something of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And don't be scared about it.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things.
I think I don't know if this is a lady asking the question, but I remember when I was doing the course in LA, it was still the day skip or one of those. We went out for like 2 days, and I remember there were 2 women on board, and they did not go to the loo at all. I know it was highly, but also it was a small boat at like 36 foot or something. I can't remember what it was, and it's close quarters. There is one working head, but that's a tough one. I think for guys it's a little bit different. So I do understand for ladies.
Yes, it is. But we sail as a family. We've got 5 kids, Jill and I, and our boat is 35 foot. Okay, so it's a little bit little, and it's close confines and close quarters, and there's an element of respect that's involved in there,
of course.
because 3 of our children are boys, and the girls are a little bit sensitive. There's an element of respect, but there's also an element of reality. Yeah. We're here. This needs to be done. It's part of those life lessons that you're learning.
Yeah,
you can't put stuff on hold that needs to be done. You have to do it.
Absolutely.
We don't have any problems with number 1s or number 2s.
Yeah.
But if the boat is battened down and one of the boys happens to fart, the girls will kill them. That's the closest that they've come to death.
I can imagine. I mean, listen, there's a lot to deal with. Like right down from the first realization that a boat is self-contained, and if you accidentally leave the tap open, then everyone won't have water when you're halfway on your passage or a quarter into the passage. All the electricity you have to generate yourself, etc., etc. These are, as you say, the life lessons that I think are beautiful for people to learn about respect and, just learn about consideration to others. So that's something that I found on those early courses, and that a lot of people don't know. When you're self-contained at the mercy of the ocean out there, I think eventually the thought of doing number 2 will be the least of your concerns. But yeah, I can imagine being cooped up in a small space. And
it's important. It's important though that everybody actually understands it, and there's a lot to be said for communicating this, actually talking to the people, because you must remember that crew then becomes a community, okay, and a very close knit community. And if I was the person that made that comment, I would actually be quite open about that discussion and just say this is something before you leave the dock.
Yeah,
you need to actually sit and talk it through and say, okay, this is the story. I'm going to insist that we have a curtain over the door to the heads, or something like that. Yeah. Just make it, just explain your situation and what you feel, and don't be shy about it. Yeah. Because these are the realities of what's going to happen. It's as sure as what you could run into bad weather. You have to know what you're going to do, how you're going to put a reef in the mainsail, how you're going to do a number 2.
Absolutely.
Just like that.
The sage advice from Mike on how to do a number 2 near you. So Samantha Joe Chandler says, coming from an ex-yachty unrelated to poo but related to the loo, nothing but loo paper. Not terribly sure what that means, but I like it. I like the vibe of it. Susan Thompson says, come sailing at Benoni Sailing Club. Come try it. Homestead Dam, Gauteng. Ahoy, Michael. Sue Thompson, does that ring a bell?
That's my sister-in-law. Hi, Sue.
Hello, Sue. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. And then we've got Barry Hundley, who says some clubs also own boats to make sailing accessible for new members. Emerentia Sailing Club, for example.
That's my friend Barry.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you. It's very cool that you guys have tuned in to watch your president come and explain how to do a number 2 in the loo, toodaloo. but it's vital. I mean, and these kind of frank chats. Is this not where you were hoping that the marketing would be going?
I think the topic needs to get changed. No, we have spoken about the loo for way too long.
I'm disappointed it took so long to go. Okay, no more talking about number 2s. I mean, unless we want to later on. But yeah, I hear you.
I can tell you about number 1s.
Okay, hit us the
I found this fabulous.
What's that a few?
And I heard this. Where did I hear this? The ideal way to do, if you're a boy, to do number 1 on the boat is to tie a vuvuzela to the rail. Okay, upside down with the vuvuzela. That way you don't get any yellow stains on the side of the boat. Simply put it out.
I must say that is brilliant advice.
It's okay. It's okay if you're 14 because then you can. But if you're 68, the vuvuzela does the hard work for you.
Oh, Gaby's just face palming so hard right now. Did you realize that this is what we'd be talking about tonight?
No idea.
Sorry, love it.
All good.
Barry, thanks very much for giving us a call. Emerentia Sailing Club is one of the iconic sailing clubs. It's right in the middle of Johannesburg, and it's ideally placed for people to learn to sail.
Yeah, and the conditions.
It's a safe place. The wind is always light. It's good. Barry has just become the Commodore, and he's turning things around there. Good luck to you, Barry. Thanks for calling
Barry.
in.
Shout out to Barry Easton Hundley. That's very cool. So you don't have to live near the sea to go sailing. There's obviously lots of inland clubs, and Emerentia sounds like they've got their stuff happening. That's very cool. So you see, it's all these little weird little stigmas and fears that do scare people, from the old white man syndrome to number 2s and things like that. That also, if you just open your mind to the experience of what it teaches you as a person, what it teaches you about yourself, these are vital life lessons. It's like going to, for those who didn't get to the military, it's kind of like a little military, exercise of just finding out a little bit about what maketh the man or the woman,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so they are cool. So Mike, I want to hear. I need crazy sailing stories. Come on, give me your craziest sailing story, and try and keep it under 3 to 4 hours if possible, or not. I mean, it's an open platform.
There's a lot of really good stories. The first time we took Michaela sailing, Michaela was born on one of the last days in May, and the MSC regatta in Durban is on the first days of first days of July. So Michaela was a month and a couple of days old. And we had a Holiday 23, which is a little trailer sailor, which we towed down to Durban, and we went to go and humiliate the locals. If you come from Carltonville, every time you go to regatta, the object is to humiliate the locals.
Okay, good to know.
In the carry cot, we tied the carry cot to the mast. We put the double bed down. We tied the carry cot to the mast. And Michaela went sailing a month and a couple of days old.
Wow.
That's a good story.
That's a fantastic
That's
story.
a fabulous story. That's why she's so good at sailing.
Well, there we go. Yeah. So that's another thing. It's. I mean, we know of a lot of family cruises, and it is doable. It's a chosen lifestyle, and it's very cool. I think those who can do it. Like I've often said, listen, if I was married with kids, I wouldn't sail. And people go, why? I go, oh, actually, you're right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Jill and I learned to sail late. Jill was a champion sailor, and we got together and we had a whole lot of kids in a very short space of time. And we decided that we needed to teach them to sail, which we did. And the value of sailing as a family sport is something that you just cannot overestimate. It's just the most fantastic way to raise a family. So when they were little, the kids sailed optimists and dapchicks, and the boys weren't really doing it in the optimist fleet because they didn't sail as individuals, but we put them on an old mirror together.
Right.
And the mirror cost 200 rand, but it was their mirror.
Yeah.
And they found some swimming pool paint that had the word polyurethane on it, and they painted their mirror with swimming pool paint. And then they came to me and said, Dad, we need some new sails. These sails are wanked.
Yeah.
I said, you can't talk like that. No, these sails are. So we got some duct tape and we sort of strengthened the leash of these sails with some duct tape, and off they went. And they said, when can we have new sails? And I said, you've got to come in the top 10 in this regatta, then you can have new sails. So they came 12th. But in one race, part of the boat the dad had fixed had come apart. So they applied for redress to their mother. Their mother gave them redress, and I had to buy them a new suit of sails.
They got one on handicap.
And then they came to me and they said, Dad, we want to try it for the World Championships. So I said, where are the World Championships? And they said the World Championships are in Tanzania. So I thought they're never going to get selected. But if they do, we can actually put it on the top of the car and we can drive there. It's dead easy.
Right.
And they got selected. They came 5th in the selection series in their old buggered blue boat with the new sails. Yeah. And they came and they said, Dad, we've made it. And we're sitting at the prize giving. A guy called Willie Sevenster, an Afrikaans guy, is announcing the team for Tanzania. But he keeps on saying Tasmania. And I'm thinking this Dutchman is dyslexic.
Oh, Lord.
They got selected for a regatta in
Australia.
Tasmania.
Oh,
okay.
Lord.
And then the guys, now we were an impecunious family at this stage. We couldn't really afford that. We couldn't afford the new sails that got them selected.
Yeah.
Now suddenly we've got to buy a new boat and we've got to send them across. I said to them, do you know the difference between Tanzania and Tasmania? And they said that was always
About
Tasmania. You
13,000
just don't listen properly. Okay.
Word. Oh my goodness! And so, how did that story finish?
Fine. They made a lot. They got a new mirror. They made a lot of good friends. They're still friends with the people that they met on that trip to Australia. It was a fabulous trip for them.
Oh, cool.
They went back to Australia in 2010, but when they went back, Ricky, the oldest of the boys, sailed with Ryan, the second youngest, and Brennan, the middle one, sailed with Michaela, the youngest one, and they went and sailed in 2 mirrors in somewhere in Australia, somewhere near Perth in Australia. And they did quite well. Ricky decided that he wasn't going to steer. Ricky could have won that World Championship because he was on top of his game, but he instead made Ryan steer the boat. And he coached him and taught him all that he knew about sailing. And then Brennan had Michaela as your crew, and he taught Michaela crewing. And a couple of years after that, the World Championships were in Ireland, and Ryan and Michaela sailed together with Ryan steering and Michaela crewing for him. And for the first time in, I don't know how long, well, I think the first time ever, the South African crew won the Mirror World Championships. And we did it in Ireland, right in the home of the Poms. And it was a huge thing. They were the youngest team that had ever done it. And 2 years later, they held the World Championships at Sjewaarderskloof in just down the road in the Cape. And this time, sort of near Hermanus, up the road. And this time, Michaela steered, and Ryan crewed for her.
Right.
And they won again.
Oh wow!
So it was really a fantastic. But the reason why I'm telling you the story is because of the trend that goes through it, the mentorship trend that goes through it, and the family component of how this whole thing came together, and the value that has brought to the family. And then after the regatta in Australia, where Ricky and Ryan and Brendan and Michaela sailed together. After that regatta, we did our first Cape to Rio race. Michaela was 9 when we did our first Cape to Rio race, as a family with our nephew Bradley on Chowbella.
Yeah.
And
the most beautiful boat I've ever seen.
You're going to be friends. You're going to
mine own eyes.
You're going to be my hero for life. We managed to come second in that race.
Wow.
The boat was lent to us by a guy called Mark Hammock for nothing, for a case of Brazilian beer. I mean, he barely knew us from a bar of soap. A family from Carltonville. I phoned him up and said, would you be offended if I asked to charter your boat? And he said no. And then I had to think, I didn't even know what the number was going to be. And then I had to think of something adult to say. And I said, maybe we could meet for lunch in Joburg and discuss the charter fee. And he said, no. And I thought, oh shit, I've offended him already. Yeah. And he said, no, just bring the boat back in good condition with a case of Brazilian beer.
No way.
Now, I don't know what that charter would have cost me. And I still don't know what the value is of putting your family, putting your family on a boat and sailing across an ocean with them. I mean, it's the most fantastic experience for a family to have. 2010.
Oh, wow. How cool.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Okay, so Cape to Rio, you mentioned it. You know that I've entered the Impossible Machine into that. And so it's all, which is why I'm desperately trying to get the offshore completed before we go. Just so that I can.
Gabs and I have discussed it.
Oh, yeah?
We know what you're going to do. We know how you're going to do your 500 miles.
Yes.
Okay, you're going to start in Cape Town.
Yes.
And you're going to go on a reach, because it'll be a southeaster blowing, okay? So you'll go on a reach, and you'll point in the direction of Tristan or thereabouts, okay? No pressure, no rush. Nice, easy reach, and you just keep on going south until the numbers start getting towards 40. Okay. And then you'll get into a westerly. Okay. And the good thing about this westerly is you'll drive automatically, and you'll go further south, just at a gentle pace in what's known as the Roaring Forties. Okay. You may have to put in a reef.
Okay, I will. I'll have.
But you will see an albatross.
That's wonderful lead-in, Mike.
You will see an albatross.
Finish my path first, and then we have to talk about the albatross because we've got to lead to that.
And then when you see the number 40,
yes,
you jibe, and you start heading to Agulhas.
Okay.
As you get closer to Agulhas, you'll run into that bloody southeaster again.
Yes.
You jibe.
Bring us home.
And you just come home. So you will have got 500.
Yes, that's
500 nautical miles.
Yeah.
You would have seen an albatross.
Yes.
You would have sailed in the Roaring Forties. You would have sailed in a southeaster. Is there anything more to do?
Dude, why didn't you come on my show earlier before we started planning our route? I mean, thank you so much. I've got the advice from the greatest, and that sounds perfect. That's exactly
Not the greatest. I am not.
Well,
I am
certainly
not.
the greatest in this room sailing. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
There's no question about that.
You must understand that I am really, really not the greatest sailor ever. I'm not. I don't do it particularly well. I'm not particularly well coordinated. I'm just absolutely fascinated by the processes. I just love it. But I'm not particularly
and
good at
amazing
it.
navigator by the sound of it. That sounds like a wonderful route, because we were thinking what to do, and then obviously there's a massive southeaster coming through tomorrow and Friday, and then we're thinking, do we delay? And no, we're going to do exactly what you've just said. So thank you, I appreciate that. I want to quickly touch on the fact that we got our first sponsor ever for the Impossible Machine, and it was by Albatross Vodka, and which is amazing. So they actually, it's so weird. Yeah, it's so weird. And when Mike told me the story about his encounters with the same albatross that keeps on reappearing all the time in those photos, the exact same one, I was like, oh my word, Lord, give me a sign, any sign, that, of a bit of synergy. And I must say that day that you phoned me, I was like, our first sponsor ever. So big shout out to Albatross Vodka for sponsoring our Jenica. So that's been cut at the moment. Very excited. We obviously have to do quite a lot of sea trialing with that, but we've got a nice big snuffer, and it'll be a whole package. We're excited to go and trial. But just lead on to the story of the relevance of the Albatross, and how the synergy is just perfect for our first sponsor, and that story that you had with the Albatross for 10 days or something like that. What was that?
Ocean Sunrise is in the harbour. I was going to sleep on it tonight before you and Gabriella so rudely interrupted my plan.
Sorry, not as my guest.
Simon, I'm sorry about that. I've even got the keys in my pocket, but it looks like the whole plan has been hijacked.
No, it's adverse conditions out there, and you don't have to sleep in the rain unless you are actually sailing. Is what I say.
Yeah.
Well, that said, I think marina life would be quite fun. But castle life is also quite cool.
So we sailed out of Trinidad, and we had some difficult moments on the boat, and we had to do a little stop in South America, which was difficult because of COVID. They wouldn't let us in, so we had to sneak ashore to buy a new sail and rations and things like that. So we felt like adventurous. Undesirables as we sneak. Anyway, we got out of Brazil without being arrested, and we headed down towards the number 40.
Yeah.
And we saw a couple of albatrosses, and then we ran into this really, really old wandering albatross. He must have had a wingspan in excess of 3 meters.
Wow.
And he was white grey, and he was an old guy, and he stayed with us for about 10 days. And he would come and fly right next to the boat on the waterline and look at the bow wave. I don't know what he was looking for. Or he would hover behind us, keeping pace with us, just there, without
just gliding.
And in all the or else he would go along the waves and then suddenly right up into the air and come back, but always within sight of us. And once we saw him on the water in front of us, and as we came close, he opened his wings and he just tilted them, and without flapping them, he just looked into the westerly, tilted his wings, and he just took off like that without flapping. We didn't see that old guy flap his wings once.
Wow.
And then on the last day, as we turned left to come up to Agulhas, we did exactly the same as what I explained to you.
Okay, cool.
He came and did a fly past. And he flew in front of us, and he went right up, and he came down and he did a fly past, and then he went back into the inclement weather that albatrosses actually live for.
Wow.
And it was just a sort of salute.
Yeah.
It was the most touching moment that you can imagine. This absolute, I use the phrase, more spirit than bird. This absolutely beautiful creature that had been with us for all this time, and then just disappeared back into the...
How magical. These are things that I'm really looking forward to seeing. I've had a couple of encounters, some whales and the usual stuff, but I've only sailed local waters, so that's about it. I mean, it is bountiful here when when we get the super pods, it is absolutely beautiful and breathtaking.
Yeah, it's lovely here.
But you know, I think those little iconic moments when you're out there alone and you get to encounter this character, you know, when you're so far out, and I'm sure there's other anomalies and beautiful things that you'll see out there. So I'm looking very forward to that. You had some advice for the Cape to Rio race, right, Gabby? I'm glad I remembered.
Yes. Yes, you did. It was rules about the Cape to Rio.
Yes. Do you recall this?
Yeah, I don't know much about stuff, okay, but a guy who does is from Royal Cape Yacht Club, a guy called Dave Alcock.
Okay.
Dave sailed Dabchicks with Gillian.
Okay.
Okay, so we're not going to give our age away.
Yeah.
But Dave is not a young man.
Yes.
And I should tell you that story, but I won't. There's not enough.
You absolutely must. This show
Tell us.
This show is built
Tell
on
us.
controversy. Tell us.
So we were sitting on our boat for the first Rio race, okay? The guys from Cape Town were a little bit shaky about this family from Carltonville that we're going to do the race, and Dave was doing our safety check, and he was going through this thing meticulously, but he was also trying to find out some background just to make sure that we weren't going to make asses of ourselves. And he was saying, "Do you have flares?" And he ticked them off, and he said, "Where did you guys learn to sail?" So I told him about Sprogs. He said, "You know, I used to sail Sprogs." So I said, "Really, Dave?" He said, "Yes, and I sailed Dabbies as well." I said, "Oh, really?" He says, "You know, when I used to sail Dabchicks," and he ticked off another item, "there was a girl that sailed. Her name was Gillian Tiernason." So I said, "Oh, yes, Dave." She says, "Yeah."
Uh-huh.
I said, "That's her in the quarter berth there." He said, "Gillian." And they said, "Yeah, hi Jill, can you remember that?"
Cute.
That's good.
And suddenly he was a lot more confident about our ability.
Oh, cool.
Dave said to me after that meeting that you must just set your first waypoint at Greenwich and 22 degrees south.
Okay.
Okay, so you set your first waypoint at Greenwich and 22 degrees south.
Yeah.
Don't worry about any other crap. Okay, don't worry about guys who are telling you about weather forecasts and guys who've got all the latest. Just sit there, point your boat straight there, and just do it.
Is that it? So, and that's
That's
the first
it.
way. How long is that first waypoint?
It'll take you about 6 or 7 days.
Okay. Copy that.
It's a third of the way, Greenwich, and 22 degrees south.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Then at 22, 21, 22, 21, 22, you just stay on that sort of line.
Okay.
If the wind starts getting light, the second rule.
Yes.
If the wind starts getting light, turn north.
To north.
Well, because you've got a high pressure system.
Yeah.
And if you're sailing with a high pressure system, there'll be no wind.
Yeah.
So if the wind starts getting light, you turn north.
All right.
Or if your barometer goes up,
Okay.
turn north.
I'm so glad I can reference this video once we're off. And anyone else, don't forget this video stays on in perpetuity for as long as the internet is around. So if you need any Cape to Rio advice,
you're getting it from the least expert person that
nonsense.
I know.
This, Laurie Sloan says, "Salute to the mighty Robinsons, the greatest seafaring family of all time. If there's anyone who will get you across the abyss, it is them. You're in good hands, Art, my man." So that's from Laurie Sloan. Wow. Okay.
Thank you, Laurie. No, I don't know, Laurie.
But
thank you, Laurie. That's a great. But I must tell you, the credit goes to my wife and my kids, not to me.
Okay.
They're the ones who know how to do this stuff.
Well, you know, we all got to have our strengths. Your strength is keeping South African sailing cool, which is why you're in the Ardila dungeon.
There we go.
At your own
there we
risk
go.
and your own peril. But cool, that's a great story. So yeah, just a shout out as well to Albatross Vodka for being the first. It's amazing. We've had a few since then, and just I tell you, I took the chance. I was just going, oh my word, am I really going to do this by myself on my own dime? And thank goodness, at the 11th hour, we've had a little bit of help to get us across the line.
You know how important that is. I just can I give somebody else a shout out?
Yeah,
Alex Forbes. Alex Forbes used to be Alexander Forbes. Alex Forbes.
Yeah.
Alex Forbes have put together a sponsorship for the Royal Cape Academy boat that is doing the Cape to Rio yacht race, and I'm actually going to be meeting with their marketing department on Thursday.
Oh, cool.
But it's such a special thing that they're doing, because
Archangel, right?
Archangel,
Yes.
that's right.
Yeah.
But the team are all people who've come from the various South African sailing development programs, or the development programs affiliated to South African sailing. Let me rather say it that way.
Yeah.
It's not stuff that we actually do the work. There's other people that do the work.
Yeah.
But I need to catch the shine. This is a really special sponsorship that they put a whole lot of effort into, and they've done special things like giving the crew training on how to deal with the press, and training on how, all sorts of amazing stuff that they've, apart from getting that boat into really spectacular condition, and getting the crew into a place where they could actually do something really good in this race.
Awesome.
So we need to give them a
Big
shout
shout
out,
out to Alex Forbes. Yeah, I saw
because
him,
their sponsorship has a view to the youth. Okay,
Yeah.
Their sponsorship actually is part of making sailing cool to that particular generation, and not to that only to that age group, but to that demographic. These guys all come from places where people wouldn't even think that sailing is possible.
Yeah.
But the story says sailing is accessible, okay, and you can really do well. And there are people there that want to facilitate your success.
Yeah.
So the whole Alex Forbes story and the Royal Cape Academy story all comes together really, really nicely. So I'd like to give a shout out to
We
them.
have big shout out again to Alex Forbes. I think it's cool. They were on. The Archangel was on display at the boat show that was a few weeks ago. So it was good to get out there and see that. Because we all know the prep, so but it's like more than just the prep. It's actually advancing their sailing instruction and all sorts of things. So and these are incredible skills. It's so weird. Like, I didn't realize that just by having a boat at the waterfront and needing so much work, being wooden, and having had the few crew variants that I've had who've gone and sweat, blood and tears on her, as most people have on the Howard Davis. I don't know how much history you have to share about her later on, but what was interesting is that in my complete innocent ignorance of just needing some help, when I did give references, because most of the kids learn from I've had a great carpenter on board. Paul he's just been amazing. Paul Honeyball, he's been a life saver for me, and so they've kind of been under his guidance. He was a master carpenter at Robinson Kane or whatever, so he's been around a long time. And then these kids leave with a reference from me, who just owns the boat and is out singing all the time trying to pay for the thing. And these kids have then progressed on from a starting little reference like this, and I have a bunch of them text me from super yachts, and they've advanced to like quite high positions on the super yachts already, and they go, listen, your little glowing reference when I was just scrubbing decks and painting and varnishing and doing all those things have really helped escalate my career. And I was like, oh wow, I didn't know that inadvertently I was actually like kind of helping people do that. Yeah, so there was also just a late realization of me not knowing that they're passing through.
But it is an entree. But it is an entree into a whole maritime industry.
Yes, of course.
We've got South African sailing has got some really interesting relationships. We have a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Transport, TETA, the Transport Education and Training Authority, and South African Sailing, and that's a huge step, because that means that places like the Durban University of Technology and the Cape Peninsula University of Technology, these guys are now incorporating sailing into their curriculum. Okay, so you have the guys who are doing the scrubbing the deck and then working on super yachts, but you have got guys who are doing formal maritime studies and are then learning to sail, so that when they actually get into the thing, they've got an understanding of the ocean, an understanding of the elements, an understanding of the wind and the meteorology and all this sort of stuff that they learn from sailing. So that's another very exciting component of the South African sailing development story. It's more than just the life lessons. We're now getting to a point where we're putting people in a position where they can actually build a career in the maritime field.
No, it's one of the greatest things I always recommend to people, especially with kids who are, I don't know, who have just yet to find what they want in life, which happens at any age, not just kids. I mean, I think we've all been through it many times in our lives, but what an amazing thing to go and see the world, and the opportunities that await who you'll meet on board on these boats, even if boating doesn't end up becoming what you do, but the people you interact with and encounter from all different walks of life. I think it's one of the coolest things to do, especially to go and see the world while we still have a world, which leads me to my next question. So the name of the show is called What Kind, which is What Kind Excel, which is like a Durban slang, as you well know.
Mm-hmm.
But the underlying thing,
you can take the boy out of the bluff, eh?
Yeah, but you can't take the bluff out of the boy. But the underlying thing of What Kind is what kindness, what kind of person are you, and what kindness do you give? So I've always tried my very best to give to charity as much as possible, and at very least try and create awareness to some pressing issues, especially environmental issues, which are escalating and have never been worse. In particular, overfishing and plastic pollution. So on that topic, I have some insight into a movement that's happening between a bunch of retail stores, and they, for the first time, are uniting on a front called the SA Plastics Pact, and they're basically trying to find out how we are handling plastic packaging in South Africa so that it doesn't end up into the ocean. They're trying to create this circle of life or whatever, like a complete circle, so that the stuff doesn't get thrown into the ocean. But to me, that is the biggest plight, and I'll be preaching about that while on board. I think these guys are doing fantastic work, and it's nice to see people uniting on that front. What are your concerns? Because Mike, it must be very different to when you were at sea. Have you noticed a difference in the oceans in general with regards to pollution?
Yes, I have. There's different ways to answer this question. If you sail the trade wind routes, you will see the occasional plastic. You will see the occasional spot of pollution. You will see the footprint or the fingerprints of mankind in the ocean. But when you come back, when the numbers get to 40, and then it becomes pristine.
Really? Yeah.
Then you get to that's where the real sea is.
Right.
That's where the real thing is. So there's that.
Yeah.
But also from a time scale point of view, I must tell you that I did my first Atlantic crossing in 1982, and there was definitely more pollution in the deep ocean than on any of my subsequent crossings.
In 82?
In 82, there was more visible. We saw little oil slicks.
Yeah.
Every couple of days, we'd see somebody had just rinsed their bilges out and pumped it into the sea.
Yeah.
Or just chucked the rubbish overboard.
All the engine oil, yeah.
No, the plastic,
garbage,
the garbage, just chuck the garbage overboard. It was a sort of an acceptable thing to do those days. The old concept of "gooi dit maar in die veld."
Yeah.
The veld didn't belong to anybody. Just throw it in the ocean. It wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
We've come a long way since then, as far as awareness goes. But having said that, there's just so much more pollution being produced, and it's how we cope with that becomes important.
Yeah.
And we're not even close.
No.
I mean, in South Africa, one of the challenges facing us is pollution of our sailing waters. So inland waters, the Val Dam particularly is at risk. There's a continued battle with the Denaceville sewage works and the upstream of the Val Dam and the Villiers, and there's fertilizer that gets into the rivers, and then of course plastic pollution whenever there's a city involved and it's a big issue, and we're not winning at the moment, but we as a community need to continually be raising awareness.
Yes.
Because we're in a lucky situation where we're right at that particular coalface.
Yeah.
But the coalface that we're at is one of the critical components to the survival of humanity.
Yeah.
Clean water is where it's at, and so the more we can make people aware of that and the stuff that we do, the better off the whole of society will be, not only the sailing community.
Exactly. Well, yeah. So, what is your biggest environmental concern? Is it plastic? Is it overfishing? Is it anything else? I don't know. Those are just two that
depends on where I am.
Okay.
In inland waters, definitely sewage is a big issue.
Yeah.
It's a big issue.
Yeah.
From a coastal perspective, plastic, in my view, is. Of course, I don't fish.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm unable to actually catch fish. It's I put line over the back with all sorts of expensive stuff on it,
And they just don't
and
go.
nothing else. So as far as I'm concerned, there are already no fish in the sea.
Is that just based on your fishing experience? Those aren't
No,
actual statistics.
Based on my personal experience, there are no fish in the sea.
So other people have. Yeah, I know. It's we're not going to carry on too much, but it is important. It's important to talk about the sad and dark stuff that is out there, because I'm firmly of the opinion. Like, I hear people talking about, what's the future of South Africa? What's the future of economics and political stuff, and who's our next president and who's doing what? And I'm like, guys, don't you understand that when the oceans die, none of that will matter. Humanity ends. We're not waiting for an asteroid. The only other thing that's going to kill us sooner is nuclear war, in my opinion. Nothing is going to kill us quicker than the oceans dying, as far as I'm concerned. And obviously, potentially like another breakout or another pandemic is always a concern, but that's going to be perpetual. That'll always happen, and as long as we keep our immune as strong as possible. But people just don't seem to get it. I hear people talking about politics and the things in the future and what we should be fighting for and what we should be teaching kids about. And I'm like, you're all wrong. You're all completely wrong, because when the oceans die, we die. And I wish I could get that message out. I will be championing that cause along my mission. I'll be very, very outspoken. I've also been a little bit hesitant to who I'm going to unite with. I like this SA Plastics Pact initiative that's going on. So guys, if you can give them a follow and see what they're about. But as I say, for once, everyone is unifying. All these retail outlets are actually collectively trying to make a decision about what to do with this plastic usage, because it is a dire, catastrophic problem that people don't seem to realize. All right, enough about doom and gloom.
No, yes, you've got to add just a small rider to that, is the remarkable resilience of the oceans. If you just give it a break, if you just give it a chance, it comes back big time.
Yes.
And so it's not a case of all is lost.
Yeah.
It's a case of we just need to do the right stuff in the right places just long enough, and it will come back remarkably quickly.
Absolutely, we
and
rejuvenate pretty quickly.
Yeah, and that's the message that you must when you talk about cleaning up.
Yeah.
You must say clean up and watch how quickly it can come right.
Right. That's good advice. I do like that, because it shouldn't all be doom and gloom and yeah. So I hear you. I'll change the
message.
tone of that.
There's got to be a tone of hope at the end.
Yes,
of
I
it.
hear you. No, I hear you.
That's
I'm able to share how we both shared how desperate it is, but I do agree there must be optimism around it. Have you heard of Lewis Pugh's plight, the 30 by 30. What do you think of it? You smiled as I said that, so you've got a story. Go.
No,
You're
I
busted. You're on
knew,
the spot.
I
I'm
knew you
zooming in. I'm
were
zooming.
going to expose the fact that I know nothing about the stuff that I'm supposed to know about.
Okay.
So, unless you give me a cue card, don't ask me hard questions.
And if you don't, then I'll explain.
Well, you go.
Okay,
you
cool.
go.
So Lewis,
It's your turn.
You've heard of Lewis. He's got a movement. He's an ice water swimmer. That South African guy.
Okay, cool.
He's been swimming for pollution, against pollution, and all sorts of other climate issues, of which climate change is still relatively debatable to me because the climate's been changing from the word go. So we won't go there. It's basically what you've been saying is if we can. So he's trying to go 30 by 30. So by the year 2030, he wants to try and have 30% of the ocean conserved, which I think is wonderful. And apparently, like a couple of hundred countries have already signed up for it and they've pledged to at least protect 30% of the ocean. And just leading on to what you're saying, or continuing what you're saying, if we can just preserve a bit of it, it will regenerate enough, but if we are just mindless and we take everything, that's when we're going to be in trouble. So, all right, that's the end of our environmental thing, but it is important.
30 by 30. 30 by 30 is something that we can punt. It's an easy one to remember, even if you're 68.
Exactly.
Okay, 30 by 30, and it's something that and it makes a whole lot of sense. So by 2030, if we could have 30% of the ocean as reserves, Paul Kruger, one Pole there.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we talking about? 1900.
Mm-hmm.
He had this idea that said, let's just make this bit of low fertility. It's not they used to man or beast because of the tsetse fly and the malaria and stuff like that. Let's make this into a nature reserve, and the Kruger Park still exists, and there's a whole lot of new privately owned property next to the Kruger Park, and it's growing, and it's expanded into Mozambique, and it is. I don't think it's 30% of South Africa, but it's more than 100% of the UK.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
it's a substantial piece of land.
Yeah.
And that is something that it has difficulties. There are poachers and things like that, but it's something that actually exists and is there in perpetuity. And if we had areas like that in the ocean,
Yes.
it's not hard to do.
Regenerate, yeah.
We just need somebody who is as smart as Wimpole.
There we go. Come on, everyone out there, tell us what we can be doing. Give us fresh ideas. I'm all ears as to who to back entirely before we leave. As I say again, I really do like the SA Plastics Pact initiative, because it's also about doing it. It's a South African scheme as well, which is something that I'm happy to support. And it is about the collective, because it's pointless one person or one company championing the change. It's good. That's how revolutions start. But if we can all have a unifying goal for this, I think that'll be a lot stronger. The same as if we break any kind of competitive or old stigmas again about sailing. It's a sport to be enjoyed by all. There's no hierarchy. There's no training that's better than the next. I think, from what I understand, having done both courses twice, once each. From the only difference is a bit of tidal variation, so guys, get over it. Just go and learn. I've always had a bit of a problem with racing in general, which maybe I should have done, because I would have really been able to cut my teeth with that. But I'm not a competitive person. Especially surfing, when people are fighting over waves and screaming at the ocean because the set hasn't come through. I'm like, what are you actually doing out here? Why are you out here? I have nothing against races. I envy them, and I would love to. And I've been in a couple, and I'm entering one of the biggest ones. But we know we're going to come stone last. She's the biggest, oldest girl in the fleet. And who knows, with our handicap.
But it's fat bottom girls that make the rocking world go round, my boy. And fat bottom girls.
Stop talking about my girl like that, dude. So that's going to be exciting. Do you have any memory of the Howard Davis? Do you have any history that you could share with us of any stories of that? Or
I crossed the ocean in 1982 with Howard Davis. Well, not on the Howard Davies. I was on a boat called Shiraz.
Okay.
And Howard Davies was the guard ship.
No way. Okay, she had the doctor on board.
She had the doctor on board and a whole lot of journalists.
Okay, how cool is that?
And we met them in Punta del Este afterwards.
No way.
And I was trying to remember the name of the journalist, and I can't.
Okay.
For the life of I can only remember Monica Lewinsky. It's the only name that sticks in my mind.
Which Gabby still has no idea.
Yeah,
We're
Gabby
talking about. We'll
doesn't
go back
know.
and Google that sometime, but maybe
Anyway.
not today.
It was said of this guy that he was the worst of the crew because he was either seasick or drunk for the duration.
Who was this?
I'm trying to
you can't
remember
remember
his
that.
name.
Okay.
But it was a fun trip that they had. They actually left before the fleet.
Right.
And then in those days there were no sat phones. So
Yes.
everybody had SSB radios, and you had to radio your position to the Howard Davies, and then the Howard Davies actually transmitted those positions back to Cape Town.
Oh wow, how cool is that?
Yeah.
Okay, so you do have some experience with my girl. Do you have any confidence in our crossing? Do you think we?
Yeah, look, you'll make it, hey? You'll go a lot of places in that boat.
Okay.
A lot of places a lot of other people won't go.
Okay.
You'll go in the incredible machine.
With that 2-meter draft arousal.
And as we're talking, I bet you there are 1,000 people listening to this that have actually sailed on her.
Very likely that I've encountered.
Yeah, and they would be all wishing you success.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you. It's good to have your blessing because it's a thing I've undertaken, and I sometimes feel I'm a little bit out of sorts and that I slightly don't have even the right to do it, but I obviously I do. But I'm just saying where I come from. It's humbling and very respectful where I'm coming from with all of this. You know.
I'll be in Rio to meet you.
Oh, dude, that would be wonderful.
Mm.
Yeah, hopefully we can find the same albatross to join us.
Now I'm going to be bringing one of the boats back after the race. My brother and my brother is going to turn 70 this year,
Okay.
and for his birthday, I'm going to show him the albatross.
Oh wow.
So we're going to do that.
Amazing.
We're going to do that return trip together, him and I, and Blockies, and a
Awesome.
couple of young.
So explain
youngsters.
that trip home, because I'm also quite interested in that, because it'll be, if for any reason I choose not to continue going around, which I can't see, I want to try and get up to the Caribbean, maybe through the Panama Canal. But explain the trip back from Rio if you could, because obviously you go south with that, and you know.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
And it's all about the South Atlantic High.
Yeah.
The South Atlantic High is in the middle, but then you have you have a different weather system below, and so there's a coming and going of the weather down there. So you would have easterlies followed by westerlies,
Oh, wow.
particularly as the fronts start coming through.
Right.
Well, the fronts actually just move up from the south, move up as the winter approaches, so they get a little bit closer. And every now and then you get a big one that comes through,
Yeah.
and it's fun and games. So you can expect a little bit of beating,
Okay.
and you watch the barometer.
Yeah.
And when the barometer starts going down,
Yeah.
you gird your loins. Okay. Make sure you know where the reefing lines are.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's the most fabulous place to sail. It's the most fabulous place to sail.
It's the way back, you reckon?
The way back is the way to sail.
Oh my goodness, you're gonna make me come. You're gonna make me come back. And you actually mentioned that you might be interested in but you've found a vessel here now, so you're coming back.
But if you're going to be cruising down the South American coast,
Yeah.
and they're going to be dilly-dallying for long enough,
Yeah.
I'll be able to fly back and do the trip with you.
Well, there we go. That would be
Just
amazing.
hope that Gillian's sleeping already.
Yeah.
Jelly pops?
No. Nothing to
Jelly pops?
Nothing to see.
May I tell you a quick story?
Yes, please do.
So I had a whole lot of meetings in Cape Town, and short budget. So I phoned a friend of my daughter's, Catherine Craig, and asked if I could sleep on his boat. And he said, fine. And I got there, and Craig was cleaning his boat, and the whole boat was packed. I mean, like there were tins of food, and there was extra diesel, and the boat was in immaculate, ready to go. And I said to him, and this? He said, no, 2 years ago, we were going to go to the Caribbean, but now COVID stepped in, and and I said, but you're already packed. And when are you going to leave? He said, no, well, I haven't sailed for 2 years, and my wife's not so sure. And then he got a phone call.
Yeah.
And I phoned Gillian, and I said, Jelly Pops, are you up for an adventure? And she said, what adventure, Michael? I said, no, just say yes or no.
Yeah.
She said, yes. And 2 weeks later, Craig and his wife and a guy called Dom,
Yeah.
we packed up and left Santolina, Ascension, Fernando de something or the other,
Yeah.
and Suriname. We
Yeah.
did this, but just on a call, hey, Chili Pops, you're up for an
You see,
adventure.
That does sound like an angel. So I'm sure she won't be too opposed if you do join us on a route home, should we come home, which is the question. But how cool is that? I mean, to have that spirit in your marriage and just in general, you know, and in your life, that you can have these adventures that await, because the hashtag for Cape to Rio is the adventure of a lifetime. And I mean, if it's anything to go by, just the prep leading up to it, it's already deserved its hashtag for me. So yeah, I really can't wait. I'm super excited. I think all the experience that I lack, I think by the time I get to Rio, I might be able to match my ticket that I'll have, you know, by the time I get there. And what better way to do it, you know? Because you know, we've been trying to shove off for ages, and there's always a reason. There's always more music coming. Thank God, I'm so lucky that I'm still so busy. But before you know it, it's 2 years and 3 years, and then this year, just in like June and July, on a day on the boat, I was like, oh, hang on. Because I remember in 2021, I was like, oh no, Cape to Rio is only 23. No ways. Can't do the Cape to Rio. I'll be gone long before that. And then in the middle of this year, I was like, 23 around the corner. So you know, it's gonna be my way to hopefully start the adventure.
The message is, you need to do it.
Yes.
You need to actually do it. There's so many people who say, maybe next time.
Yeah.
Maybe next time.
Right.
The first time I said maybe next time.
Yeah.
We got a little trimaran on the Val Dam, and we were sitting on there, and you must be careful of the middle children.
Yes.
My middle son's name is Brennan, and he is trouble.
Okay. Come on,
So
Brendan,
we
get your stuff together, man.
We're sitting on the boat, and he says, I've seen, this is now in 2020, so I've seen the notes of race for the Rio race. I think I'm going to do it. And I said, no, there's no ways. We're going to do it as a family.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, okay, well then, and I said, yeah, but I've got 3 of you at university now. Give me a break. And then Catherine said, the way your sons are carrying on, next time you might be a grandfather. So now's your moment. And that was the moment that I actually phoned Mark Hammock and asked him if he could borrow the boat.
Ah, cool.
Next time, I was sitting on our boat on the Val Dam, and Calvin the sailmaker was carrying sails down to Roy's boat. Roy's got a lovely 438 called Madame Pizzazz. Brand new sails. And I said to him, geez, Roy's a lucky boy. Look at all these new sails. And he says, yeah, yes and no. So I said, what do you mean, yes or no? He said, well, he's got all these new cells, but his spleen exploded, and he's been in ICU for the last 3. And I've got to deliver these cells, otherwise I'm going to have to claim against the estate.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so I started contemplating my own mortality, and on the drive from the Val Dam to Carltonville, I decided which policy I was going to sell.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I phoned Mark and I asked him what the number was for the sale, and the policy was just the right number.
Oh, wow.
And so that was Michaela's university fees gone. and we bought Charbella in time for the 2014 race.
No way.
About a month later, I was invited by my sons to crew on an L26 with them for no other reason than that I weighed exactly the right amount. Okay, the racing boat, they just needed that weight on the. I wasn't allowed to say anything or touch anything. I just had to move from this side to that side
Go and hike.
when I was told, you know. And while we were out there, I saw Roy's boat coming out with all his brand new sails up, and with Peter Hunter steering the boat. Peter Hunter, his best friend. And I thought, Roy can scarcely be cold, and these oaks are playing with his toys. I mean, it's just not the sort of thing. As the boat came closer, sitting in the middle of the boat was this old guy with a hat on. And as he lifted, he said it was Roy.
Wow.
He'd survived.
Oh, cool.
So I said to him, Roy, you know, I spent Michaela's university money on the understanding that you were going to die, and here you are surviving.
Wow.
Don't you think you should do the honourable thing?
Wow.
He didn't speak to me for about 3 months, but eventually he eventually got over it. But that's the story, the true story about why we now own Chowbella. Because of Peter Hunter's spleen.
But I mean, so
and it's all about just taking the opportunities when they're right, because you never know.
You never know when the doctor's going to prod there and go, ooh, what's that? But no, I kid you not. I mean, it's a joke, but it's very serious. But and so my mantra has been, being a South African musician, even as successful as I've kind of been, it's not excessive wealth, and you can always sit and go, well, in 10 years' time I'm going to have X amount in the bank, but then you lose your mobility, or something, you burst a spleen, or you get something adverse happens. So my mantra has been, I can't afford to do it financially, but I can't afford not to do it.
Exactly.
Right now.
That's the point.
That's what that has driven me through all of this, and that's why I've just gone. It looks crazy, but I can't afford not to do this.
And the good thing about the Cape to Rio race is that it actually gives you a date. It says,
yes,
this is the date by which you're going to do that thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And it is a dream, and it's something really, really special to do, and I think everybody should do it.
Yeah.
Well, my firm belief is you shouldn't die without having seen an albatross fly, okay?
I'm happy to see that this weekend. We leave for our 500 mile on Saturday. So I'm following, I kid you not, guys, watch this. I'm following that route, and I'll personally update you, and you're going to have to give me a little bit more detail on that again. I don't want to have to go through this, but I'm going to follow your route. I'm doing that on Saturday. We leave on Saturday. That's what's happening. So we're doing the qualifier. I will be back with 500 miles, regardless of where we go.
Joel, what are you doing on Saturday, my darling?
Oh, there we go. Are you up for an adventure? Well, you'd be most welcome. I kid you not. She's a big old girl.
Are you talking about my wife? Or
Are you talking about my boat? So that is literally what's happening this Saturday. I've got a bunch of stuff. I'm flying to Johannesburg tomorrow because we're promoting the new single, which is coming out on Friday. That collaborative Shallow Waters that we did with Arno Carsons, Ross Learmonth, Francois van Coke, Karen Zoid, and Kurt Darren. So I'm doing a little bit of a radio run. We'll be on Jacaranda early on Thursday morning to promote that, and then early on Friday morning as well. And then the next day we set sail, and I'm coming back with my miles, and I'm booking the oral exam, of which I'll be calling you for some heads up on some of the trick questions that they might impose on me. And either way, I'm always going to do it by the book. I'm cutting it a bit fine. Please make sure that the offices stay open long enough to process my paperwork. Mike, if
you know what you're going to find, and this is a very important thing. Is you're going to find that the examiners are going to want to help you to pass, and they're going to pass on information to you that becomes very important. Ryan and Michaela, my two youngest, sailed the last Cape to Rio on Chowbella without even asking me to sail with them. It was simply assumed that they were going to. Well, Ryan and some friends were going to do it, and I told them that a couple of rules. One is Michaela has to go with. He can't do the South. And he said, Michaela went with, and one of the things they had to do was to get their skipper's tickets. They had to do this before. Everybody that was on the boat had to have a skipper's ticket. But Ryan and Michaela had to have the Yachtmaster qualification, and they did it, and they got all their miles in place, and they wrote the written exam, and Ryan got a question in navigation wrong, and he missed it by a couple of percentage, so he had to rewrite it. But Jannie Hofmeyer did the exams, the oral exam with them, and I listened in from a distance to and he did this most fabulous synopsis of sailing skill. He asked question after question after question, and as he was asking the questions, I could see Jannie was actually trying to establish whether these kids actually knew what to do in certain circumstances, how they would cope with this, how they would cope with that, and they were up to the game. Right. They both passed their oral. Ryan eventually passed his written exam the second time round, but it was too late to be for the entry. Michaela was then listed as the skipper of the boat because she was the only one with the right qualifications. So she was the youngest skipper ever to do the Cape to Rio. Can I tell you the rest of that story? It's actually a very good story.
I'd love to hear it. Just turn your mic slightly towards your face. Like, there we go. Thank
So-
you, sir. Thank you. Yeah.
So off they go.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't know. It's such a leap of faith. That you've encouraged these kids to do this. You know that this is like a chance in a lifetime for them, and off they go. And they do the strangest things. They sailed right. The first start in the last Rio race had very little wind, so they sailed right inshore, all up the coast. And then they sailed further north than anybody else, and then eventually they were leading the class. It was class 2, but it was the first start. They were the first boat in the first start, and they were approaching South America. And for the first time in 100 years, or living memory or whatever, there was a cyclone coming off the South American continent, right in their path.
Oh, man.
And weather advisories were coming out, and now I'm sitting in Carltonville, and I can't give them any advice because they have to make all these. It's against the rules for them to get assistance from the shore. So I get a call that says, I sent them a message, said, have you seen the weather advisories? Look out for the weather. And they got one back and said, yeah, we've seen it. I said, that's cool.
Yeah.
Then I get a call that says, Dad, we just want to tell you we've made a decision. If we go straight, we're going to sail into this cyclone. So we decided we're going to go straight to Rio from here. So instead of going straight to the South American continent, they decided to go down to Rio.
Yeah.
And they sailed into the cyclone, and off they went. And they tell stories of 50 knots of wind and huge waves, and eventually got to a point where Ryan and Michaela and Tawanda were on the deck together. They sent Tawanda down. It was Ryan and Michaela. And then Ryan sent Michaela downstairs, and he was alone on the deck. And her job was to check the navigation because at the bottom end of the cyclone there were little eddies that were forming. So the wind was coming from all different directions, and her job was to make sure that he was staying on the correct course, and he was up there steering, and he'd been up there for quite a long time. And in the middle of the night, I got a call on the sat phone, Michaela, and she said, Daddy, I'm scared.
Wow.
And that's that moment when you think, oh my, what have I done? Yeah. And I said, no, scared is a good thing to be now. Don't worry about being scared, because if you weren't scared, I'd be worried. But now what really counts is what you do. Now you have to know what you've got to do, and you've got to keep on doing it, because you know that boat's good enough to do the storm, and you know that you and Ryan are good enough to do the storm. And so you just stay with the game.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And she said, cool, Dad, we'll do it. And then they tell the story of how they'd open the lid and pass Ryan a chocolate and check that he was okay, and then check the course, and all the crew was sitting on the starboard quarter berth to keep the boat flat and to keep the nose from going into the waves, and he would knock, and they would pass him some water, and he would knock, and they'd pass him a chocolate, and he would knock and ask what the course was, and she'd tell him that they're doing fine. But no, it's like 50, 60 knots of wind and huge seas, and then they hear, what's this? And was Ryan actually beating out the tune of Fat Bottom Girls. Just a skinny lad. Okay. Singing Queen on the top of his voice into the storm, and then they sang all their Queen songs, and then they sang all their ABBA songs, and they sang all their High School Musical songs, and then they sailed out of it. Wow! And they literally went from 50 knots to nothing. I mean, they had a skinny little storm jib up, and they sailed out of it, completely becalmed. Wow! And they were safe. And it's one of those stories that you can't actually tell without understanding the amount of emotion that those kids actually managed in that time.
Yeah.
Whether it was Ryan who was steering and sent everybody down below, or Michaela dead scared of what might happen to her brother at the top there, or the kids who were sitting on the quarter berth in the dark, hot, because and this whole thing, it was just the most.
How did you feel during that time? How long passed before you heard that they'd gotten through?
About 6 hours.
Yeah.
No, less, maybe about 4 hours.
Yeah.
And but the tracker was on. I must tell you, I didn't sleep much.
Yeah.
But I watched that tracker update however many times it did, and every time I got a new update, I heaved a sigh of relief.
Right, of course.
And then, of course, it just stopped.
Oh, sure.
Because they were becalmed.
Right.
And it took me a bit of time to realize that they were out of it and they were safe.
Oh, my goodness.
And
okay, I don't think I'm doing the cafeteria. Sorry, this is my official resignation now. I'm joking. I'm okay. I've been not okay. I'm respectfully nervous, obviously. I have been out in some big seas. I've grew up in Durban. I've been out in some kind of big waves, but it's those things that separate man from mouse, and and will certainly be stories that.
But there are rules to the game, and if you play the game according to the rules, you'll be quite safe.
Right.
And one of the main rules is never be overconfident.
Absolutely.
Never be overconfident.
I promise you if that's what came off, that's not what I was.
The other main rule is, if you think it's time for a reef, it's already too late.
Yeah, I've heard that one. No. We are definitely gonna be going very, very carefully. I think this 500 miler on Saturday will certainly tell a lot about the condition that she's in, which I'd like to think is really good. But I know the heads that I have with us on board, no one is a cowboy. And I also just know that because it will be my say, I just know that I don't take chances like that. I will always err on the side of caution. And but obviously you don't know. We're up to the fates and the gods. But definitely something I want to do while I'm still fat and bouncy, and I can get back up and and carry on again.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly support you.
Thank you.
Wholeheartedly support you. It's
that means a lot coming from you.
Such a special thing to be able to do.
Thank you. She said, actually, that does mean a lot. I really do appreciate it. And I could hear your stories all night. I know you've got a curfew, don't you, Gabby?
A curfew, yeah.
But thank you for being here. Do you want to just maybe say a few more things, what people should go and look for, what to support, how to get involved, like what are the hashtags and handles?
Tell them about the website.
Yes.
All the events on the website.
Okay, cool. So, of course, the 75th in December, as Mike mentioned earlier, our hashtag for the event this year is SA Sailing 75th. Mm-hmm. So we're encouraging everyone, all participants, anyone, spectators, if you're taking photos from the shore or wherever you are, hashtag SA Sailing 75th. Even leading up to the events, wherever you are, hashtag away. Mm-hmm. Everything is on our website. So if you go on our homepage, we've got a button there that says the 75th anniversary celebration. All the events are listed there. T-shirts for sale that you can buy. Everyone that is entering any of the events is getting a free cap, which is pretty cool. Everyone is getting a free cap.
Amazing.
Cool. And then there's also additional caps that you can purchase, which is also great. And then today we actually launched our limited edition hoodies that we are selling. There's only 100 that we are selling. So limited stock, limited edition.
Awesome.
And I will say we've got something special launching tomorrow. Ooh. So keep an eye out on the SA Sailing.
Okay, so the website
Facebook
is South
page.
African Sailing or
SA Sailing.
sasailing.com.
.org.za.
.org.za. I'll pull the link up. sasailing.org.za. So that's where you can get all the information.
Yes.
For that, I wish you guys very good luck. I will certainly be flying the flag for South African Sailing as best I can. Being a ticket holder, hopefully an offshore ticket holder before I depart. And I appreciate what you guys do, because as much as it is a little bit tedious for a rock star to have to comply with certain rules, I do believe that they come from the best place. It's safety first. I've done the whole SAMHSA thing like you can't believe. I've had the run around, all the usual reasons to moan, but I don't. I promise you, as much as my perception is of me, I really do play by the book. I really do, and I will never skimp on anything. And so I appreciate that there is a governing body. I think, like anything, it's always good to rebrand. I'm constantly having to work on a new album and having to, keep relevant. And I think we have such beautiful selling opportunities here, and we have such good regulating bodies. South African Sailing being the main one for that. And I certainly support you guys. I will definitely continue to support, and I think I really do encourage people, get down to your local yacht club, wherever it is, give it a try. Just remember that sense of adventure, that story that Mark just shared with us. I mean, these are things that you're just not going to get by being scared and not taking the plunge and going out and trying these things. And it's not dangerous. You have to be prepared. You have to have your qualifications. So I will say, do it, and take it in increments. Do it. Just go slowly. Find a friend who's got a boat, and also use your gut. I will say one thing: use your gut, because a lot of the, I don't know if you'll agree with me, Mark, but I haven't heard many sailing tragedies that didn't begin with someone, as you said, with pride, who had to be from point A to B because of a business meeting or because they thought they could and they saw adverse weather coming through, and no one mentions that when these sailing tragedies unfold. And so that's the other thing. If you see adverse conditions, I remember I've been kite surfing and people ended up being blown into buildings, but why would you do? The winter conditions have to be cross onshore. They can't be onshore. Then you're going to go into buildings. So use common sense, use your gut, use some logic. If it's not looking good, don't do it. If you're going out with a friend and you don't like how they've got their boat set up, or don't judge them as a person, because we've all got our stories. But just use some common sense. Make sure, just make sure what would you need once you're out on that boat? How would you feel safe and confident? Don't just jump on and be a cowboy. It's up to everyone to look after themselves. Everyone becomes a part of the safety crew as soon as you depart. So I would strongly encourage people to do that. Come down and see Tim while you can. We might have 1 or 2 days of charters left, but I don't think so. We're gonna have to close shop on that pretty soon, so that we can get into a bit of race camp, which I've not been able to do yet with all the music that I've been doing. But I really wish you guys luck with getting the sailing going in this country, because it is a beautiful sport, and I've certainly been captivated. And let's see if hopefully when I get to Rio, I'll be properly bitten in the best way.
You need to do something for us now.
Okay.
You've now got a different audience tonight. Yeah. Hopefully you've got a whole lot of sailors watching and involved here. But you're going back to Joburg tomorrow to launch a new song.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us about that and tell us how we can follow? Tell the sailing community how they can follow that, and tell them to watch you so that they can learn cool.
I think everyone has their own sense of cool. They must just get over some of the traumas that they've experienced in their past that have turned them into sour, grumpy old people or young people. Because I've met a lot of young people who are the grumpiest, oldest people I've ever met in my life. So people just need to figure out their happy spot. They need to get their trim right. But for those of you who are listening, our first #1 song ever, Just Ginger, 25 years ago, was a song called Shallow Waters, which is kind of the narrative that I've done. If you see what I'm creating here, I'm sending it to, it releases on radio on Friday. I can't for the life of me see that with the likes of Karen Zoid, Kurt Darren, Francois van Kook, Arno Carstens, and Ross Learmonth, I can't for the life of me see how that's not going to be played on radio a lot. And that's going to be played during December, which is just before I leave on the 2nd. I then have a song about the environment called Tell Everyone, which I will play you guys a snippet of once the show is finished. But I'm going to release that on the Friday after I leave, which I'm also just trying to add to the story, just to create awareness about the problem that our oceans are facing. But I'm going to Joburg tomorrow to promote the song. It's on Friday. It'll be on iTunes, Spotify, all the digital outlets, and we have a music video to boot, which will be on the YouTube channel, which by now I hope you've subscribed to and liked, and etc. etc. But that's my news. It's been crazy busy doing music and refurbing and building a boat and entering it and upgrading your ticket as well. I'll tell you that offshore license was one of the toughest things I've ever done in my life. At the end of the 4 hours, I put my pen down and I just like lay my head on the table, and I had all the horrible matric flashbacks. They all poured over me again. I'm so fortunate that I did get it. I hope I don't know if it's been completely checked, but as far as my invigilator was concerned, it was good. And but yeah, what an experience. And just always grow, grow yourself, learn a skill, learn something else. Don't be led by fear. Don't get old too soon. Don't let the old man in, at all. That's famous Clint Eastwood line. He wakes up every morning, he doesn't let the old man in. And that's kind of what I'm doing, and I encourage people to do that and do it safely. Use your gut, do it by the book, do it the South African sailing way. And Mike and Gabby, thank you guys so much for being on the show. I think that's about it. We can carry on. Please,
our thanks to you.
Yeah,
our thanks to you.
Thank you.
It was really special inviting us here and just allowing us to share the stuff that we have to say with a much wider audience than we normally have. It was very special. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You're so welcome. I hope it grows, guys. Please share this so we can get the views up. And share the good word about South African sailing and about sailing in general. We live in one of the most beautiful countries in the world with some of the best sailing conditions in the world. When you graduate from sailing in South Africa, you are a proper sailor around the rest of the world. There's something else that I've heard as well. So thank you guys for coming in tonight. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks to everyone who tuned in from potentially different demographics tonight. But either way, thanks for the support all the years, and I hope you enjoy the song, and hope to see you at a local yacht club, sailing club, or out in the water, even better yet, or in Rio. Let's see you in Rio when we get there safely, hopefully soon. Have a beautiful night, everybody. That's it from the Ardila Dungeon Studio. Until next time. Cheers.